Welcome to the free audio rendering of Not Without Scars 2. Such an insightful and impactful work must be accessible to the countless number of people living similar life experiences. Becoming a best-selling author pales in comparison to creating a tool capable of instilling hope in the multitude of people trapped in the valley of decision. My greatest profit comes in helping others emerge victorious over their life struggles. My goal is to encourage individuals to follow their dream. My message: you must never quit on your faith, pursuing your aspiration or vision. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take a moment, invite your family, friends and acquaintances, and enemies to listen to this work chapter by chapter. It is free to listen as well as free to subscribe. Peace, love, and phenomenal blessing.
How do I write my life story? I know hurt and pain. I don't like either one, whether physical or emotional. Herein contains my story, Not Without Scars Part 2, Optimism, Perseverance, Persistence, Resilience, 2 decades of personal struggle. Optimism, I faced the new millennium with hopefulness. Perseverance, my ego, my humble beginnings, my desire to achieve never allow me to turn away from a difficult task. Persistence. Opposition should be anticipated as an effective strategy to victory surfaces. Resilience. Difficulties do not automatically spell termination. Scars reveal my imperfection as reminders of past episodes of pain, sorrow, or triumph. Scars can tell beautiful story endings or relay misery that wishes to remain anonymous. This work is meant to help others who have experienced decades of struggle. When struggles appear to never end, you must get through the night and face the challenge of a new dawn with fresh hope.
Chapter 17, The Failure of the Non-Existent Appeal. Introduction. I held on to the glimmer of hope that my appeal would bring me a release from the prison sentence. It was a far-fetched hope that 3 federal appeals court judges would override a fellow peer, a district court judge, to grant the restoration of my freedom. At this point, it was all I had. Sure, I had faith, but this was the only potential miracle the court system. The district court judge allowed my past record to be introduced in the 2007 criminal proceeding, even though I had not been convicted of a crime since 1979. Yes, we are talking about an almost 30-year gap. I served 10 years of a 30-year sentence. I was released on parole. I was released in 1989 on parole. The parole ended in 1993. This date was significant, as the federal statute allowed the U.S. attorney could go back 15 years from the dismissal from any federal oversight. From 1993 to 2007, the time elapsed was 14 years. Almost 30 years of rebuilding a life gone. I had to face 84 months of incarceration, commencing at age 58. I had no financial resources to go further with the appeal. In addition, tax cases were separated. I had no financial resource to appeal my company's conviction. The non-existence appeal were in my rearview mirror. I had to search for new avenues of hope. I went to the chapel a couple of times, but I could not find solace in listening to a government employee talk to me about faith. Life had positioned me in a near helpless position. The taking the lemons of life delivers and making lemonade is a much overused and misinterpreted axiom. I had to view the situation with a few more adjustments. First, I had no pitcher, no water, no sugar, and no knife to cut the lemons. Second, I did not even have the lemons. Finally, I had run out of the desire to work that hard for something that held no promise of release. Questions were too numerous, too difficult, and too baffling to answer. I had decided to permit some time to ease by before engaging anything. I had to first sit still. Hurt, pain, frustration, and weariness posed an overwhelming agenda with which I had to deal. Past imprisonment had taught me I simply had to rest and sleep. No planning, no strategizing, no thinking. The forefront measure directed me to rest and sleep. Historical. Certain periods in history suddenly lift humanity to an observation point where a clear light falls upon a world previously dark. Anne Sullivan. When your last resort vanishes, the engine pulling the Senator Obama train toward the White House was gaining momentum. Axelrod led a masterful campaign. He had the sound awareness of a multi-million vote lead with an assurance of 95% of the black vote. There were no promises made to the black community and not a lot of time required to campaign in the black community. Those votes were secure. The black issues were not addressed, only canned phrases. Yes, we can hope and change. I would later shed tears, as many other black people did. I never thought I would see a black man as president of this country. My expectations of change were not high. I had not heard anything of substance for the black community. It was obvious a new movement was on the way that would strip away all of the past black leaders and usher in this new presence. I could only observe. I had become disenfranchised. I did not count. History was being made, and I could not participate. Was that so unusual? All my life, history had been made as others channeled the decision-making in rooms and ways that excluded me. I felt bad that so much enthusiasm swelled and I could not hear my own voice. The emotions were drowning out reality. Nothing was being asked of Senator Obama from the black community. It was as if another symbolism of something unattainable would suffice. Looking back, or perhaps looking forward, all the black community would get from President Obama's 8 years will be symbolism. I can only imagine the number of Barack H. Obama middle schools that will appear at the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and Malcolm X Boulevard across from the Rosa Parks housing project. When one of the greatest moments in American history was taking place, the premier role for my well-being focused on my ability to rest and sleep. Hopefully, when I would awake, I could start a new day. I had to awaken with a clear conscience, a fresh way of thinking, without bitterness in my heart. Rest and sleep would allow me to close my eyes to the past. My last words of a personal bygone era had to yield to whatever the dream that would act as the impetus to pull my train through these tumultuous times. Social black experience. The battles that count aren't the ones for gold medals. The struggles within yourself, the invisible, inevitable battles inside all of us. That's where it's at. Jesse Owens. When fancy words become a dull knife. The immediate battles for me were all inside my head. Yes, the nation was undergoing a transformation period. My boundaries were now confined. Several volumes of my autobiography were circulating throughout the Federal Correction Institution at Elkton, Ohio. Of course, this led to a lot of discussion with my fellow inmates. There were also newspaper accounts, so I was not an unknown figure. At least some people came to know me. The younger men were very respectful. Experience taught me that I would only offer advice when asked specifically. My opinion, without being summoned, carried no value. I knew everyone around me had to balance their own burden. The length of the sentence, the wife, the girlfriend, the children, or the uncertainty of life or vision beyond the captivity were part of the required juggling act to retain mental balance. The slave wanted to be free, but not having any economic future, life beyond the plantation held little promise for the majority. Many had to find their way back to a near slave existence to acquire the basic essentials to survive. Thus, the ex-felon is restricted in what future holds to become economically stable. The cycle gets perpetuated with the restriction imposed even after the sentence is completed. The collateral sanctions that prohibit employment, securing license, or obtaining the security clearance to operate in certain industries would destroy potential careers. Many professions were closed as an opportunity due to the background check reality. After life in this prison, some things would not permit an individual to outdistance or outrun. The personal background check ranks as a premier weight. I find it to be an anchor that will hold you in the midst of the ocean, even when the shores are in clear view. The system and society can dress restriction with fancy words. You cannot pull yourself up by your bootstraps when the system instills sharp instruments cutting away the opportunity to own a pair of boots. Once again, the bootstrap axiom is like a dull knife. It doesn't have any capability of cutting through tough materials. When non-existent hope finally revealed a blank screen, I pressed toward the stability. Stability rejects any delusional thinking. At the appropriate time, stability will ground the thoughts of a balanced being. I had to sharpen my mind. My mental capacity would be the only sharp knife that I could employ to cut through the maze of this imprisonment. The perennial mindset for recovering a life after captivity, I would have to play by an arbitrary standard set by the existing system. Without compliance, little or no hope remained for my success. Furthermore, this coeval system had withdrawn any offer of my ever returning to premier status. My thoughts should now turn out to be an ex-felon who seeks a good job to survive. Go off into a corner, sit and be quiet. The system controlled all the propaganda tools. I wore that scarlet letter that the designated leaders were already chosen. Any future inclusion for myself in shaping the direction of my people had been officially snubbed. I had to solemnly refute all these claims. I never would forfeit the gift of creativity that had been divinely instilled within my soul and breathed the life in my spirit. As my ancestors had emerged from slavery to build schools, churches, institutions of higher learning, and built an economy that caused the community to thrive, I knew I had to find my place to discover the proper evolution of thought. I would not awaken from my rest and sleep to accomplish powers that go by whimsical expression or unvalidated jargon. In my heart, I knew I must rise above the quagmire of despair. My faith in the gift that resided in me would eventually proffer me to hope for a quality life outside the visible bonds of imprisonment. Regardless of the time that prison sentence demanded, I would somehow command the courage to venture beyond the structure of physical incarceration. Theological. Thus saith the Lord, cursed with great evil is the strong man who trusts in and relies on frail man, making weak human flesh his arm, and whose mind and heart turn aside from the Lord. Jeremiah 17:5, Amplified Bible Classic Edition. Regrouping alone. Anytime I find myself in a situation of powerlessness, isolation exercises the tendency to create further vacuums or gulfs. A state of powerlessness or lesser power than a predominant institution should not automatically transpose me into an individual acceptance of a condition of hopelessness. These circumstances may at times intertwine. However, I shall retain without failure the capacity to invoke power and hope over my life as two remarkable positive thirsts. These thirsts shall be quenched by my determination, faith, and the will to serve a greater good for the people wherever I will find my life deposited. I will not abandon my confidence that the Father shall lift me from society's ash heap. Prison may hold the undesirable and outcast of society, and I may be listed among them. Penal colonies may hold the leverage as the unconscionable parallel to society's junk pile of humanity. But my divine destiny shall lift me from this stockpile of obscure human misfortune. Even surrounded by men who I cannot escape by day or by night, I had to find the place, space, and time for regrouping alone. I would rise at 3:30 a.m. I would meditate, pray, and study the scriptures. It would be at these early morning moments of aloneness that the formatting of thoughts for the future began to resonate within my being. The thoughts were not initially coherent as in sentences or paragraphs. Key words began to present themselves in such a manner as not constructing complete revelation, but each revealing a significance as not to be forgotten. Words would become chapters if I could hold on to the syllables as they came into my moments of aloneness. Powerlessness and hopelessness versus power and hope. Carefully massages the dissimilarities blended through my mind to form improbable allies. Power can arrive as a result of unflinching hope. In the midst of the ash heap of life, I fought to maintain and possess an ingrained stoutness and sturdiness. The conditions could not shake what resided in my inner core of existence, who I am. Hope stemmed from my faith that I would indeed rise from the ash heap of life in spite of the visible condition. In the absence of visible resources, faith can project the pathway to success beyond the captivity. My faith, anchored in a sure connection to the Almighty, would produce a conduit that would lift me above the label of an individual discarded by society. My prayer in the past and now, O Lord, demonstrate your compassion and mercy by redeeming the hopeless and the powerless from the societal ash heap. Empower the imperfect people and the impoverished people who are in need of a refuge. Help the people to hold steadfastly to hopefulness while they have to endure a powerless circumstance. Here I am, Lord. Send me and use me. And it is so.